Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to make complex things a bit clearer.
hmm
We've all been there, right?
That feeling, maybe a setback at work, a personal loss, or just watching the news and seeing things swing wildly. These moments can feel, well, completely paralyzing.
They really can. And they're uh, pretty much inevitable, which is why the sources we looked at are so interesting. We're not really here today just to talk about, getting through those tough times.
Yeah.
We're digging into what the research and philosophy say happens after that initial shockwave hits.
Exactly. And our focus is resilience. But we're defining it as something, well, much bigger than just bouncing back. The sources talk about true resilience as this capacity to adapt, to learn, and crucially, to actually grow because of the difficulty.
hmm
It's about taking failure and not just accepting it, but kind of using it, turning it into fuel for success down the road.
Right. So our goal for you listening is pretty ambitious, maybe.
hmm
We want to unpack the key strategies from the material that can help you fundamentally change how you look at adversity.
Yeah. To show you, with real evidence and examples, how you might start seeing challenges less as roadblocks and more as, well, allies, even if they're painful ones, in your own growth.
Okay, let's get into this.
Right.
Because that first step, it's all internal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe the hardest part. The sources seem pretty clear on this. You have to start by shifting how you perceive difficulties.
Yeah.
Obstacles aren't just dead ends. They're like challenges that push you to learn something new, develop a skill. It's a necessary reframing.
And that reframing, that cognitive shift, it's so vital because crisis often acts as this really harsh but effective catalyst. If you've been coasting along in your comfort zone, a major setback, losing a job, maybe a business failing, it just jolts you out of it.
Right.
That initial, often devastating moment, it can actually become the perfect trigger to question your old assumptions, maybe pivot towards something that feels riskier, but is actually more aligned with what you truly care about.
We hear the term growth mindset a lot, obviously, from Carol Dweck.
Yeah.
But the sources seem to apply it really practically here. We know the basic idea. Fixed mindset means talent is fixed. Growth mindset means you can develop skills through effort. But how does that actually work when you're in the middle of a real crisis?
Well, the application is really where it gets practical. It means actively looking for the lesson in the mistake rather than seeing it as some kind of final verdict on your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
One specific tactic the sources mention is just adding the word yet. So if something fails, you don't think, I can't do this. You train yourself to think, I can't do this yet.
That's such a small change, but it feels significant. It keeps the door open, right, to future learning.
Exactly. It shifts failure from being this endpoint to just being, well, a current status, a point on the map. And that really fosters perseverance because every mistake then becomes immediate feedback. It tells you what needs tweaking.
So failure stops being the opposite of success.
Right. It becomes an essential piece of data on the way to success. You start focusing on the effort, the learning process, things you can actually control, rather than just obsessing over the outcome, which often you can't fully control. And that frees up so much mental energy that would otherwise just get eaten up by fear or beating yourself up.
Okay, so shifting from the internal, the psychological side, the sources also show how adversity can be a powerful engine for external results, specifically innovation. This idea of innovation coming from constraint.
Yeah, this is fascinating. We tend to think innovation needs, unlimited resources, total freedom, but often it's the opposite. Difficulty like a lack of money or time pressure or some unexpected rule, it forces our brains out of their usual ruts.
It makes you rethink things you took for granted.
Precisely. Constraint kind of dismantles that functional fixedness where you only see an object used for its typical purpose. Suddenly, you're forced to find new ways to use the tools you already have.
I love the examples the sources use here, like Velcro. That wasn't cooked up in some high-tech lab with a blank check.
Not at all.
It was just a Swiss engineer, Georges Mestral, back in the 40s, noticing how burrs stuck to his clothes and his dog's fur after they went for a walk. Simple as that.
It's the perfect example of reframing something annoying, those sticky little burrs, into a solution. He didn't invent some miracle material. He just mimicked a natural hook and loop system he observed because of a minor hassle. That observation, born from difficulty, led to something used everywhere.
And you see it on a massive scale, like what we all just lived through with the pandemic. Video conferencing, remote work, those things existed before.
Sure, for years.
But the crisis, that sudden massive constraint, it didn't just make us adopt them. It forced this incredible acceleration in refining the tech, changing how companies operate almost overnight. Necessity really was the mother of invention there.
So, okay, you're in the middle of a crisis, personal or professional. How do you actually find these hidden opportunities? The sources suggest you need to cultivate a very deliberate mindset. Open, flexible, sticking rigidly to how things are done before. That's the enemy when everything's changing.
You have to consciously reframe things, ask specific questions, right? Like, okay, what can I genuinely learn here? Or what new need has this situation actually created? It shifts the power dynamic in your head from feeling like a victim to looking for potential.
Yeah, and it also involves taking a longer view. Let's say your company is in crisis. It's painful now, obviously, but you have to try and see it as the moment to maybe streamline things that weren't working anyway, ditch old habits, and build something stronger for the future, even if it means some short-term pain.
Using the crisis to build resilience into the system itself.
Exactly. You leverage the weak points that the crisis exposed to create future strength.
Which brings us nicely to the sort of tactical level, the
Yeah.
step-by-step rebuilding after a failure. The sources lay out a pretty clear process, starting with acceptance and just processing it.
Yes. First, you just have to acknowledge it. The failure happened. This is a reality now.
No denying it.
No denying it. And just as importantly, you have to give yourself permission, give yourself space to feel the emotions that come with it, the sadness, frustration, anger, whatever it is, but without immediately jumping into harsh self-criticism.
That's hard, though.
It is hard, but it's vital. It's okay to be upset. You just can't let that feeling curdle into self-attack because that stops you moving forward. Self-compassion is almost like step zero.
Okay, so acceptance first, then comes analysis. This is the more intellectual part.
Right. You need to reflect as clearly and maybe objectively as possible on what actually contributed to the failure. What went wrong? This isn't about finding someone to blame, especially not just yourself. It's about extracting the real lessons.
What were the flaws?
Mhm.
Strategy, execution, timing.
All of that. Get specific so you can genuinely avoid making the exact same errors down the line.
And once you have those lessons, the next step is setting new goals. But the sources are careful here, aren't they? They warn against setting some huge, overwhelming goal right away, especially when your confidence is shot.
Absolutely. That can be paralyzing. Instead, the advice is to break success down into really small, manageable steps. Tiny ones, even.
Like what?
Like, focus intensely on short-term, achievable things. Did you manage to read one chapter of that book today? That's a win. Did you make that phone call you were dreading? Win. Go for a 15-minute walk. That's progress. The idea is to rebuild your confidence gradually through these small, consistent victories.
And this links back to something called self-efficacy, right?
Yeah.
Your belief in your own ability to actually do things.
Precisely. Self-efficacy isn't just feeling good. It's the belief you can execute the actions needed for a result. When you hit those small daily goals, read the chapter, make the call, take the walk, you're actively proving to yourself, okay, I can take action. I am capable. You rebuild that belief brick by brick.
And that process really highlights the power of discipline and perseverance. We often wait for motivation to strike, but motivation is, well, it's fickle. It comes and goes.
Totally unreliable. Discipline is what provides the structure. It keeps you moving forward, even when you absolutely do not feel like it.
And perseverance is sort of the inner grit, the strength to just keep going, despite the setbacks that will inevitably pop up on this new path.
Exactly. And every time you push through a tough patch, you're not just making progress, you're reinforcing that self-efficacy again. You're proving your resilience to yourself. And often you're inspiring people around you too, even if you don't realize it.
The sources also mention specific tools for maintaining hope emotionally when things feel really dark. One is practicing gratitude.
Yeah, and this isn't just about feeling thankful in general. It's a deliberate mental exercise.
Right.
You consciously shift your focus away from what's wrong, what you've lost, towards what's still working. What support do you still have? What tiny success did you manage today?
It counteracts that negativity bias we all have.
It does. And that ties directly into the other big tool, reaching out, seeking support from others. Isolation just makes everything worse. It feeds despair and self-criticism. Connecting with people, friends, family, mentors, support groups, it offers perspective, sometimes practical help, and just that basic human connection that reminds you you're not alone. It's a buffer against hopelessness.
So ultimately, the argument here is that adversity isn't just something to endure, it's potentially life's most powerful teacher. It's like a mirror, isn't it?
A very unflinching mirror, yeah. It reflects back not just your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities, but also strengths you never knew you had. Resourcefulness, creativity, just sheer stubbornness sometimes.
And it forces you to see your own patterns under pressure. How do you react when things get really stressful? Do you lash out? Withdraw. Freeze up.
Observing yourself in those moments gives you incredibly valuable self-knowledge, if you're willing to look, that is.
And there's humility in that too, isn't there?
Yeah.
Crisis kind of forces you to accept that you're not fully in control, that you're
Yeah,
fallible.
absolutely. And while that's tough to swallow, it can be really freeing. It makes you more open to asking for and receiving help, which strengthens relationships. It fosters genuine self-compassion, accepting your limits without judgment.
And the final stage of this transformation, according to the sources, is turning that pain, that difficulty, into actual wisdom.
Yeah, this is the deep work. It involves fully accepting the suffering, reflecting deeply on what it taught you. What did I learn about my limits, my values, about how people behave,
Hmm.
and then consciously applying that knowledge to make better choices going forward.
And that process broadens your empathy too, doesn't it, once you've been through it?
Immensely. When you've navigated your own deep difficulties, you develop a much richer understanding and compassion for the struggles of others.
We see this so clearly in some of the inspirational figures mentioned. Nelson Mandela, for example.
Incredible example. 27 years in prison. He could have come out broken or bent on revenge. Instead, he used that time for profound reflection, tempering his fight for justice with this incredible capacity for reconciliation. That wisdom was forged in the fire.
Or someone like Oprah Winfrey. Coming from a childhood with severe trauma and poverty,
Yeah.
she channeled that deep understanding of pain, not just into personal motivation, but into a form of empathy that connected with millions. It became central to her entire platform.
And Viktor Frankl surviving Nazi concentration camps, he didn't just write about his experience, he developed logotherapy, a whole school of psychology based on finding meaning through suffering, arguing that purpose is the core human drive.
Finding meaning even in the absolute worst circumstances.
Exactly. And Stephen Hawking, too. Facing that devastating ALS diagnosis early on, he refused to let the physical limitations define him.
He shifted his entire universe inward to his mind.
Precisely. The physical constraint forced an absolute laser focus on his intellectual work, and he ended up revolutionizing physics from his wheelchair. Incredible resilience.
So, pulling all this together for you listening today, what's the main takeaway? The sources seem to agree adversity isn't the end. It's almost always the start of some kind of transformation if you choose to engage with it actively.
Yeah, the response is everything. How you react, the questions you ask yourself afterwards, that's what really shapes where you go next.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on. If real success, the kind that feels meaningful, is often redefined after we overcome big challenges, maybe it becomes less about external stuff and more about who we've become.
Right, less about the titles or the money.
Exactly. So should we primarily measure achievement by those external markers? Or should we maybe focus more on our growing resilience, the wisdom we gain, the clarity we find about what truly matters? It's worth asking yourself, what does your definition of success look like now, knowing that challenges are just part of the deal?
A powerful question to consider.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you next time.